This episode is about the individual songs that led to the hippie movement fully developing. These 19 songs are mostly from 1964 and 65. The invasion of British bands began in 1964 and dominated American rock and roll from that time until 1967. The hippie movement was developing but would not reach its signature level until 1967. Most rock and roll songs, beginning in 1964 and well into the 70s, were about the hippie mindset, or were of the hippie sound. I have done 2 previous videos, which I will link below, about how hippie songs can be interpreted. These songs often were written on a deeper level than rock and roll typically is written, often having multiple layers. That is, they can be interpreted in different ways. This video will be about how these individual songs were interpreted by many in promoting a hippie mindset. I have placed the links of the following songs in the description below by number. Number 1. On August 13, 1963, Blowing in the Wind was released by Bob Dillon. This is a protest song against the Vietnam War in general, and it asks several humanitarian questions as to how things should be. The answers, it seems, should be obvious. Dillon arrived in New York City in January of 1961. His goal was to play in the coffee houses of Greenwich Village, the beatnik hangouts. The song questions what a man must do to be considered a man. Many believe this to be a civil rights question, but a question of humanity as well. Number 2, on February 28, 1964, saw World Without Love by Peter and Gordon go mainstream. It is about a lack of love in this world, that mankind is mostly indifferent to one another, or often worse. The song was written by Beatles' Paul McCartney and John Lennon, who gave away the song because they didn't feel it was up to their standard. However, the song reached number 1 in the US. The next 3 and 6 of 7 songs, all British songs, I find to be very different in their sound than the well-known songs that came before. It seemed the hippie sound was emerging in this. Number 3. June 19, 1964 brought the world House of the Rising Sun by Burdon The Animals. This takes us to the mysterious New Orleans, rooted in deep tradition and history. A culture unfamiliar to most Americans or British at the time. There are many interpretations of what this means, but it certainly warns us of the dark side of life. The Animals were heavily influenced by the blues and the difficulty of life. This song was a folk song that had been passed down through the centuries and whose lyrics had been changed many times. Number 4, July 24, 1964, She's Not There by the Zombies debuted. I suppose this must be the beginning of garage rock. The song is about a girl who, I wonder, even existed. Some have thought this might mean the changing of society. Another view has been that it represented the duality of self, that is, the conflict between what is real self and the self one displays to the world. Number 5, August 4th, 1964, Really Got Me Now by the Kinks came out. I would think this is the first big proto-punk sound, and also garage and hard rock. This was the Kinks' breakthrough hit. The song's energy and raw sound were alluring to those already trying to pull away from conventional society. Number 6, October 19, 1964, Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel made its debut. 3 years later, this was included in the soundtrack for the film The Graduate. The lyrics resonated with the younger generation in that they interpreted it to be about disconnection, about a lack of communication and a time of confusion. Also, some took it to mean an embracing of meditation. I found this to possibly be the best written song of its time. It was pure poetry. Number 7, October 23rd, 1964, All Day and All of the Night by the Kinks made its beginning. It had a big influence on the development of hard rock and heavy metal music. It's about the relentless pursuit of experiences, knowledge, and a greater life in rebelling against the constraints of society. Ray Davies, the lead singer and main songwriter for the Kinks, said Bo Diddley inspired him to create the song. Bo Diddley was an African-American cornerstone to the development of rock and roll. Number 8, December 2nd, 1964, Gloria by them debuted. Another garage rock performance. I found this to be the harshest sounding song of the early 60s. Gloria is the story of a young woman who has embraced counterculture and does what she wishes to do, as opposed to what society wants her to do. Number 9, January 29, 1965, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood by Eric Burdon and The Animals was released. The Animals had a heavy rhythm and blues influence, combined with a gritty rock sound that has resulted in one of my favorite bands. The Animals formed in Newcastle in the north of England, a place Eric described as being miserable. Eric would later live in the Haight District of San Francisco and was close friends with John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and others. Eric was a tremendous influence on the punk sound, which would come later. Some suggest the song is about the tensions between the youth and society, but also civil rights tensions. Number 10, March 5th, 1965, For Your Love by the Yardbirds started. Guitarist-singer Eric Clapton argued against the song as being too commercial, too pop, and away from their blues rock sound. This would lead to Clapton leaving the band. It was the Yardbirds' first hit. The song spoke of love being materialistic and not about real love. The suggestion was that society bases love on materialism, with the greatest way we are taught to show love is to buy a gift for someone. The greater the purchase price, the greater the love. Number 11, on March 8, 1965, Times They Are Achanging by Bob Dylan was made public. This is a call to action, a call for everyone. It is a warning for what is going on and a caution to be sure to understand. His words could not have been more accurate. It truly was a time of great change, especially compared to the number of years before. The song was written before U.S. President John F. Kennedy's assassination, but that made this song even more relevant as it was released after the assassination. Quite poetic. Bob Dylan in 2016 received the Nobel Prize for Literature. He is the only songwriter to receive this. Number 12, March 8th, 1965, Subterranean Homesick Blues by Bob Dylan was released. It is about anti-war protest, social discontent, social injustice, and the meaning of a confusing world. It is thought the title of this song was inspired by beatnik writer Jack Kerouac's Subterraneans, published in 1958. Considered proto-rap, blues, and folk rock. Dylan made this into a video, one of the earliest to do so. Beatnik writer Allen Ginsberg is in the whole video. The song was strongly influenced by the beatnik way of writing. This is in the use of stream of consciousness, which is a sort of unfiltered way of writing. Dylan often makes references to classical literature and poetry in his songs. Stream of consciousness writing had also been used by earlier writers such as Irishman James Joyce, English lady Virginia Woolf, Russian Fyodor Dostoevsky, American William Faulkner, Frenchman Marcel Proust, and others. Number 13, March 25, 1965, Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds began. This debut single reached number 1, written by Bob Dillon, who also at the same time released it as a single. Several others in later years would sing this. Bob Dylan's early songs often were told in folk music. I found the line in the song "Take Me on a Trip on Your Magic Swirling Ship" interesting, which might stand for a world in flux. The song is likely about escape, self-exploration, life's journey and purpose. Number 14, June 1965, Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones came out, with its sexually suggestive lyrics, but also anti-consumerism. The song is annoyed that society tells us what to do to be happy, and speaks of alienation. This was the Rolling Stones' first number 1 hit in the US. Number 15, June 4th, 1965, Heartful of Soul by the Yardbirds appeared to the world. One of the first rock and roll songs to use the Indian sitar instrument. With the musical portion of this having already turned to the east, it wouldn't be surprising if the lyrical portion had also. This song, though seemingly a love song, was also taken to mean the loss of connection to society. It seems to be an invitation for change, to be the authentic self, to meet one's purpose, not to be materialistic or follow society's shallowness. Instead, to have a love for humanity, to be as we were meant to be. Number 16, July 16, 1965, Eve of Destruction, Barry McGuire's anti-war song, was released. It is about the dangers of nuclear war. The song also talks about all the hate in the world and points out the racial situation in Selma, Alabama, in the U.S. McGuire paints a situation in which he believes there is no hope. Warning, we must overcome the hatred. Number 17, July 20th, 1965, Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan came out. It seems this is both a warning and points out the superficiality of society. That what society values can quickly be lost. Then what? I believe it suggests that if the free life of a Rolling Stone is embraced, then one doesn't have to endure the ups and downs of materialism and consumerism. One's state of mind or emotional health, then, is based on one's inner self, and not on what one obtains from the outer world in the direction of greed. Number 18, August 1965, saw the release of We Gotta Get Out of This Place by Eric Burdon and the Animals. It became a theme song for American soldiers in Vietnam. It is also a statement about those who are stuck in poverty, and that in those conditions, one cannot rise up out of it. Certainly it must question society's roles in the existence of poverty. Number 19, October 22nd, 1965, saw the release of It's My Life by Eric Burdon and the Animals. It spoke of the difficulty of life, but the protagonist speaks of finding his own way, living his way, his own freedom. It seems to be a rebellion of society's proposed way of life. The next episode will cover songs from the end of 1965 and into 1966. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and see you in the next episode.